Now, when Coach is ready, he'll give an opening statement, look back at last week, and a preview for this week, and then we'll have questions.
Well, first I want to thank everybody for being here and the professionalism that you do your jobs with. I get that covering a winless football team is difficult. I gotta figure that some of your readers, listeners, are in part staring at what they think is a car crash, with curiosity. We have an opportunity for a reset this week, and it's one that me and our players are really excited about. I did not recognize the team I saw on video when I watched our game from this past week. I don't want to take any credit. I don't want to sound like I'm taking any credit away from Stephen F. Austin. I thought they played their best game of the year. I thought coming off of a disappointing loss for them, returning to their home environment, that they had a great game plan, that they had great effort, tenacity, excitement. They were having a lot of fun, and we were on our heels. We had some logistical challenges. I recognize that. I talked to our players about that. We got in later than we should have on Friday night. We had delays with the airplane, with the catering, with the hotel key check-in. There were a lot of issues. There were issues. We got lost going over to the stadium, and that took about 20 minutes longer than it should have, and made everything worse. But none of that should lead us to not fighting for every point, not fighting for every inch. And I felt like that we had a team that up until last game had fought for every inch in every game. They fought for every point, and we didn't do that. We certainly there were challenges in the game as well. We lost our quarterback on the first series. That's a gut punch for everybody, and one that's going to take an adjustment. It's an opportunity to show toughness, and we didn't show our toughness. I thought they had Stephen F. Austin had a great game plan offensively to attack some of the areas where our defense was weak, and we needed to adjust to that, and we weren't able to get that done in time to stop some of the bleeding. We were at that point we started to go 3 and out on offense and have very quick drives, and defensively we kept going out there and playing, but we were. After they had made some contested catches early, Stephen F. Austin, we started to back off our coverage a little bit, and that was the wrong thing to do. And so it took kind of until halftime, but to be very honest, at that point the game was all but over at 35-0. Mindset's always like, for a head coach, I have to look at it collectively, but it's personal, it's individual. So I do think that there were probably some guys on our team and some coaches that felt like a Hail Mary field goal loss to Abilene Christian is as low as you can possibly get. And, it's not going to get any worse. And so just show up and next week's going to be better. I think there probably were some guys thinking like that we've got a pretty good football team and our share of victories are going to come. And there's no team on our schedule that we're just going to show up and beat. There's no team on our schedule that's just going to show up and beat us. It's got to be fought for every game. And so in a way, I hope that this reset, this opportunity to learn, this butt kicking is exactly what our team needed. I think winning is contagious, and so is losing. And if we want to, break that mold of losing, we got to pay extra special attention to how much work we're putting into this week to week. Last week was our worst week in terms of weigh-ins, body weights. I think there are some guys that are starting to feel the stress of academics, the stress of the season, and we took a step back in our preparation last week, and that in part showed up in the game too. We've had to reset our goals. It's still, in some ways, very early in the season. We have a 0-0 conference record, and we have 100% of our focus on conference, and I think that's a great thing. Our top goal will still be to establish a winning record at home, and I think that would be a great start toward the season and possibly being able to achieve greater things this season, just starting by protecting at home. We've got 5 games at home. We want to establish a winning record at home. Our first opportunity to do that is going to be Cal Poly here this weekend. Cal Poly, they're a little bit of a difficult team to judge. They've played 2 lower division opponents and 1 upper division opponent. They haven't really played a scholarship FCS opponent yet. They did lose to San Diego, but they also had 2 pick sixes. It's hard to beat anybody when you're throwing 2 pick sixes. But in all other areas of the stat sheet, they probably should have won that game. If there is such a thing as probably should have won. They have really emphasized throwing the ball so far, and they've got three really productive receivers: Giancarlo Woods, Jake Woods, and Michael Briscoe seem to be their top targets right now, but they have other capable guys. And then up front on defense, they're get off the ball, get up the field, create havoc type of defense, and two of their most productive guys up front, Ethan Rodriguez and Elijah Ponder, who's been an all-conference guy for several years running now, and is kind of their pass rush specialist. So they've got an inside guy and an outside guy that are both really productive on that defensive front. Any questions?
Chris Bowen, how you touched on it with Hank going down to like fifth play or whatever that was. How much did that kind of take the wind out of the team's sails, so to say? Was there a noted difference on the sideline, or kind of how do you think you responded to that?
Yeah. Again, okay, fair question for a head coach, because I've got to try to judge all 70 guys that were there, and you know, I can probably just my best guess, and watching the film, I think that when Hank went down, it probably was a thought that our defense had to play really well and lights out, and we had already given up a score, and so we began to get on our heels, and I think we began to doubt ourselves, doubt that we were going to be able to hold Stephen F. Austin in the single digits or the under 20 points, which is probably what realistically it was looking like it was going to take at that point. The starting quarterback is typically, for every team, going to take 70 to 80% of the available reps in any practice. It was really difficult for a backup quarterback to come in and run a complete game plan. It's difficult to lose your quarterback at any point in the game. It's incredibly difficult to lose them in the first series, a promising first series, and then even more difficult when it's your third starting quarterback of the season. And so we just, I feel like we're behind, and we need to catch up quickly in terms of the preparation that we have for our quarterback, and then the answers that we would have if our quarterback is suddenly not available. We've been behind in that area.
Kind of on that, I guess, what are the chances we see Caden Box this week? I know you early in the week you don't want to kind of predict out, but from what I understand, he's kind of the one guy that seems in the mix that we haven't seen. Has that been a thought, and do you think the chances are better than in weeks past?
Yes, Caden is going to take starting reps today at quarterback,
okay.
and so is Jonah, and so is Kiai. So we're going to use Tuesday as an opportunity for all three of those guys to take an early lead in the week. All of their styles are different, and so we can't let this competition leak into Wednesday. But we do feel like that there are some plays within our base offense that all of those guys should be able to run. And Caden, in part because of his youth and in part because of his injury that he had in training camp, he hasn't had that opportunity. So this will be his first opportunity.
Kind of took my question.
Oh.
Yeah, I'm like the quarterback reporter, right? With everything, Ed, that you said at the beginning in terms of not the team you recognized on film, is that a conversation with the team as a whole, or with the leadership council, or however that might happen? Or is it just the flow of a team perspective that I kind of lack, that you just work it out next day back at work, or is it a conversation about, look, we've got to find some toughness, or someone's got to help us find some toughness. We're not going to skate through anybody. The ACU game was a good game, but we got to, do more.
Mm-hmm. So one of the reasons that sometimes I'm 2 or 3 minutes late to this meeting is we have our team meeting right before this, and so I address the team for about 20 minutes typically on Tuesdays, and then we break to special teams, and then I come over here and visit with you guys. And the notes that I bring are This is the PowerPoint printed out that I go through the team. So a lot of what you're hearing about me not recognizing the effort that we put on film, the lack of fight that we had, the lack of response to adversity, that's exactly what I spoke to the team about. I'm generally pretty matter of fact with our guys. I tell them as we've got upcoming opponents, I'll go through what our next 3 opponents are doing on the season, and I'll talk about whether they're showing well or not. And I think I want to give our guys the same honesty when I try to hold up a mirror for them. And I felt like that we had a team that really fought for every inch in the first 3 games of the season, a team that I was proud of my efforts, and felt like we were moving in the right direction. And I think we took a major step back this last week.
If I can just follow that, do you get any feedback then from anybody, or is that just kind of a lecture hall situation where the professor puts it up there and everyone just kind of takes it in, or yeah. And I think I'm asking that because after the ACU game, there was so much a tone of, okay, we've made some steps, and I wondered if the other day was a step back, so I just wonder about additional interaction with the guys.
Sure. No, yeah, our guys are like really in tune. I know if you see them in the hallway or something, they're not always the most talkative, charismatic group, but they know what's going on. They know that Idaho went down and played a razor close game with Abilene Christian this weekend. They know that NAU went and played on the road in Incarnate Word like we did and lost by 24 points. I mean, they know that the Big Sky is a league that if we can prepare well and compete well, that we can play. So they deserve the truth. But to answer your question, when there are 100 guys in a lecture hall and me down in front of them, the most I can get is who's making eye contact, who seems to be intense in the moment, who's nodding their head yes, and who's eating cheese and crackers.
Sure.
There's not a lot of feedback amongst that age young man anyway.
Okay. Yeah.
So I hope that they're taking it the way that I intend. We'll find out on Saturday. But that's the fact that we did not play well this last Saturday, that buck stops with me. When you talk about preparation, you talk about logistics, you talk about toughness, you talk about a response to adversity. All of that is a reflection of the head coach, and I failed the boys this last weekend.
I may be wrong, but I think David Hogue got his first snaps of the season last week. Was he finally kind of back from the injuries, and was it just time last week, and kind of what can we expect moving forward?
Yeah, I'm so proud of how far David has come, and was so happy for him in those moments. David is throughout most of the season, just because of the way our lift groups are. We have a fantastic weight room, but it's not it can't fit 120 guys, so we have to go in separate groups. And one of my MOs is I lift whatever lifts the boys do, I do it right there alongside with them. And David and I happen to partner up quite a bit, not because we're similar strength levels, but because he wants to kick my butt all the time. And so he's like, hey coach, and so we get partnered up a lot. So I've seen his journey back from injury. I know what injury is like. I didn't have what he had, to have 2 back-to-back ACLs on the same knee. It's got to be just incredibly disheartening, a mental challenge, even more than a physical challenge. But to see him get that back and start to narrow his focus on more preparation rather than rehab. Rehab's hard enough, and there's uncertainty at the end of rehab. And so it can be hard for an athlete to make that transition from the rehab and just getting, quote unquote, cleared to actually being a capable football player like you were before, at the level that you were before. And for him, because he's had played at such a high level in the past, it's even more of a challenge and more of a mental challenge. And I really feel like that he's just made tremendous progress in the last 3 or 4 weeks, and give him all the credit in the world, and excited about what he can accomplish the rest of the season.
On the running backs, you've mentioned they're all kind of 6-sided die, whatever comes up 6. It seems like Darius Stewart's been coming out of 6
Yeah.
more so lately. What kind of does he bring that not necessarily the other guys don't, but what kind of sets him apart?
Yeah, I'm glad you mentioned that. We keep talking about yards per carry, and you know it's really difficult for the running back coach. The running back coach handles the rotation. The coordinator designs the rotation in terms of what plays we run, and hey, I'd like to see more of this type of back on this play. But by the end of the season, we want to be right in line with yards per carry. Our guys that have the best yards per carry, we want them to have the most carries. And Darius has been excelling in that. Caden Meese has been excelling in some shorter yardage situations, and there's a little bit of a different equation for that. But Van Shield has showed a lot of promise and put a lot of work in too, and he was dealing with a minor injury, more of a contusion injury, but it did slow him down there for a week or two. So just anxious to have as many guys back in that dice cup as possible and just keep rolling it. Yeah.
Any more questions?
I can't not ask something, right? Did David play some snaps on the other night?
David
Hogue?
Hogue, yes.
Yeah, he did,
He
okay,
did, yeah.
okay, just wanted double clear that, yeah.
Yeah.
Good.
Had a productive game. I don't know if it was charted as a tackle for loss or a sack. I don't remember checking, but he
Okay.
did have a big sack, what I would call a sack. It was on the
Okay.
quarter.
I think it was a set.
Yeah, I think it was a set.
I guess more of a philosophical thing. How much, you've talked about different coaches and different styles. I don't want to say micromanage, but that's like the farthest to one end of the spectrum versus completely like trusting the guys that you hired. Where would you say you kind of fall along that spectrum when it comes to like letting the offensive and defensive coordinators like do what you kind of hired them to do, especially with somebody like Walter Scheid who you go so far back with? And does that change kind of as the losses pile up?
Sure, yeah. I'm a technique and personnel guy, and I really try to discipline myself to stay within the discussions of technique and personnel. Oftentimes, when a head coach comes in and starts criticizing the technique that we're using, it bleeds into the strategy discussion. There's different techniques required for different coverages or different run strategies and rush game strategies, things like that. So I think sometimes it's a little bit difficult, but in no way would I have the time to be as involved in all three phases as I am if I was trying to run a certain side of the ball. So really what you see, there are many times on Saturday I'm on the headset and I only know the flavor of a call, the coverage itself, the aggression or the conservatism of that call. Same with our offense. I know when it's a run play and the type of run play, but a lot of the formations and motions are going right over my head because I'm just not that involved daily. And same with by the time we get to the game, the personnel going in and out of the game, I'm not very involved in. What I try to do is make some notes along the first half of things that I'm seeing and be an extra set of eyes, but I almost always preface it with, if you guys feel like I'm seeing this wrong, I trust you. So just take this for what it's worth. If the shoe fits, wear it.
Awesome.
Any more questions? Thanks.
Thank you, guys.
Thanks.